The universe, in its infinite wisdom and questionable sense of humor, had decided that the pinnacle of medical achievement should reside in a gleaming orbital station called Mercer's Edge. Here, floating in the cosmic equivalent of a medical school's wet dream, the Hegemony Medical Consortium held court over the galaxy's health with all the subtlety of a supernova and twice the ego. Dr. Kextharovos adjusted her crystalline neural interface with the practiced arrogance of someone who had never been wrong about anything medical in her 847-year career. The Zeltharian's forearms moved with precision as she reviewed the morning's cases, her elongated skull housing a brain that could calculate molecular interactions faster than most species could sneeze. Around her, the medical bay hummed with the quiet efficiency of nanobotic healing chambers, quantum cellular repair units, and enough advanced technology to make a planet's GDP weep in envy. Another successful day of actual medicine, she announced to her assembled team, her voice carrying the musical quality that made Zeltharian opera so popular and their medical lectures so insufferably pretentious. Nurse Killmonger, status report on the Vorthan patient with a degenerative bone syndrome. The insectoid nurse's compound eyes flickered through several spectrums of light as she accessed the data directly through her neural implant. Complete cellular regeneration achieved in 2.3 hours, Dr. Voss. Nanobots have restored bone density to 147% of species optimal. Patient is requesting to leave immediately because, and I quote, "This place makes me feel inadequate about my own immune system." Dr. Voss's mandibles clicked in what passed for Zeltharian amusement. Typical. They come here dying and leave feeling intellectually inferior. It's almost too easy. The medical bay's central hologram shimmered to life, displaying the day's schedule with a kind of organized perfection that would make efficiency experts weep tears of joy. 17 complex surgeries, 43 nanobotic treatments, and one consultation that would apparently challenge the very foundations of their advanced medical understanding. Though Dr. Voss didn't know that yet. The universe was still setting up its punchline. Dr. Voss called out Dr. Thymon-Krex, the station's Andromedan administrator, his voice carrying the particular strain of bureaucratic stress that suggested someone was about to ruin everyone's day. "We have an unusual request." The word unusual in medical circles typically meant someone had managed to get a body part stuck somewhere it had no evolutionary business being, or had developed an allergy to their own blood. Dr. Voss had seen both. Neither fazed her anymore. Define unusual, administrator. Are we dealing with another Proximan who tried to perform surgery on himself using kitchen utensils? Worse, Thymon's blue-tinged skin seemed to pale slightly. Humans. The medical bay fell into the kind of silence typically reserved for funeral homes and tax audits. Humans. The galaxy's most persistent amateur, our medical disaster. They were the species that had somehow managed to survive everything the universe threw at them, using nothing more sophisticated than plant extracts, fermented beverages, and what could only be described as weaponized stubbornness. What do they want? Dr. Voss sighed, her forearms performing a complex gesture that roughly translated to, "Why do the gods hate me specifically?" Medical assistance. Their colony ship Wanderer's Hope is requesting emergency docking. Bacterial outbreak aboard, apparently resistant to their treatments. Dr. Voss's expression shifted into what her colleagues had learned to recognize as her educational opportunity face. It was the same look a professor might wear when handed a particularly incorrect exam paper. How delightfully primitive. Very well, grant them docking permission. This should provide an excellent demonstration of the difference between actual medicine and whatever it is humans do when they feel unwell. 20 minutes later, the human delegation arrived with all the fanfare of a small plague. Captain Jasper Kowalski stood barely 1.8 meters tall, which was adorably compact by Galactic standards, his weathered face carrying the kind of resigned expression that suggested he'd had this conversation before, and it hadn't gone well. Beside him, Dr. Indira Blackwood clutched a small, unremarkable container with the protective instincts of a mother defending her young. "Thank you for seeing us," Captain Kowalski began, his accent carrying traces of what linguists had classified as Earth Regional Variant 7, persistent optimism. "We've got 43 crew members down with what our medical officer believes is a mutated strain of Epsilon coli. Our standard treatments aren't working." Dr. Voss examined the humans with a kind of clinical interest typically reserved for particularly fascinating bacteria cultures. Standard treatments. I see. And what exactly constitutes standard treatment in human medicine? Dr. Blackwood stepped forward, her dark eyes holding the quiet confidence of someone who had kept people alive using whatever was at hand. We've tried broad-spectrum antibiotics synthesized from our medical fabricators, but the bacterial strain appears to be adaptive. I've developed an alternative treatment that's shown promise in preliminary trials. Alternative treatment. Dr. Voss repeated the words with the reverence one might use when discussing ancient folklore. Please, Dr. Blackwood, enlighten us about this alternative treatment. The human medical officer opened her container, revealing what appeared to be a collection of small vials filled with liquid that looked suspiciously like something one might find in a particularly questionable brewery. The smell that wafted out suggested fermentation, plant matter, and what might generously be called organic complexity. It's a combination of fermented garlic extract, willow bark derivative, honey with specific antimicrobial properties, and a few other compounds I've isolated from our hydroponic gardens, Dr. Blackwood explained with the matter-of-fact tone of someone who had long since stopped being embarrassed about practicing medicine with what amounted to a spice rack. The silence that followed was the kind typically associated with witnessing someone explain why they believed the moon was made of cheese. Dr. Voss's forearms performed an intricate pattern that roughly translated to "Surely you jest, but I fear you do not." Let me understand this correctly, Dr. Voss began, her voice taking on the pedagogical tone that had made her legendary in medical schools across 3-star systems. You have created a treatment using fermented vegetables, tree bark, and bee vomit. Well, when you put it like that, Dr. Blackwood started. And you believe this concoction will prove more effective than nanobotic cellular repair technology that can rebuild damaged tissue at the molecular level? In this specific case, yes. The medical bay erupted in what could only be described as the kind of laughter typically reserved for comedy clubs and congressional sessions. Dr. Voss's mandibles clicked in rhythm with her amusement, while Nurse Killmonder's compound eyes literally sparkled with mirth. Even the usually stoic administrator Thymon was making sounds that suggested his species found something genuinely hilarious. "Oh, my dear Dr. Blackwood," Dr. Voss managed between waves of what passed for Zeltharian chuckling, "this is absolutely precious. You've brought folk remedies to a medical facility that can cure genetic disorders before patients finish filling out their intake forms." Dr. Blackwood's expression remained remarkably calm for someone being laughed at by representatives of a dozen different species. "I understand your skepticism. However, I'd like to point out that this treatment has successfully managed bacterial infections that our standard medical fabricators couldn't handle." Because your standard medical fabricators are probably built using technology we discarded 5 centuries ago, Dr. Voss replied, wiping what might have been tears from her optical senses. "Tell you what, Dr. Blackwood, we'll take your patients, treat them with actual medicine, and you can observe how real healthcare works. Consider it a learning experience." The human captain and his medical officer exchanged a look that carried the weight of 1,000 previous encounters with helpful aliens who knew better. "Would appreciate any assistance you can provide," Captain Kowalski said diplomatically. "Excellent. We'll have your crew transferred to our medical bays immediately. Nurse Killmonder, prepare the standard nanobotic treatment protocols for bacterial infections. And please, ensure Dr. Blackwood has a front row seat for the procedures. She might learn something useful about proper medicine." As the human patients were transferred to the gleaming medical bays of Mercer's Edge, Dr. Voss couldn't help but feel a warm glow of professional satisfaction. Here was a perfect opportunity to demonstrate the superiority of advanced medical science over whatever combination of desperation and plant life humans called healthcare. The nanobots went to work with the mechanical precision that had made them the gold standard of galactic medicine. Microscopic machines swarmed through bloodstreams, identifying bacterial targets with accuracy that would make military targeting systems jealous. The infected cells were isolated, the bacteria neutralized, and cellular repair began immediately. "Beautiful," Dr. Voss murmured as she watched the real-time displays showing nanobotic activity in the first patient. "Watch carefully, Dr. Blackwood. This is how proper medicine works. No guesswork. No folk remedies, just pure scientific precision." For the first 6 hours, everything proceeded exactly as expected. Bacterial counts dropped, cellular damage was repaired, and the human patients showed marked improvement. Dr. Voss was already composing her lecture on the superiority of advanced medical technology when the first anomaly appeared. Dr. Voss, Nurse Killmonder's voice carried a note of confusion that was entirely out of place in that typically efficient medical bay. I'm seeing unusual readings from patient 7. The holographic displays shifted to show the nanobotic activity in the indicated patient. For a moment, everything looked normal. Nanobots were doing their job, bacterial counts were down, cellular repair was proceeding on schedule. Then Dr. Voss noticed something that made her four-chambered heart skip what felt like several beats. The bacteria weren't just dying. They were adapting. Worse, they were incorporating nanobotic components into their cellular structure. That's unusual, Dr. Voss muttered, her earlier confidence beginning to develop hairline cracks. Nice, expand the analysis to all patients. The results that appeared on the main hologram would have been fascinating if they weren't absolutely terrifying. The bacterial infection wasn't being cured. It was being upgraded. The nanobots, in their mechanical perfection, were being systematically hijacked by bacteria that had apparently decided to attend an advanced technology workshop. Dr. Voss, Dr. Blackwood's voice was carefully neutral. I believe I should mention that this particular strain of bacteria has shown remarkable adaptive capabilities. That's why our standard treatments were ineffective. Yes, well, Dr. Voss replied, her mind racing through possible solutions while trying to maintain professional dignity. Clearly the nanobots need recalibration to account for bacterial adaptation. This is a minor technical issue. What happened over the next 4 hours was many things, but minor was not among them. The upgraded bacteria didn't just resist the nanobots. They began reproducing using nanobotic components as raw materials. They developed resistance to every countermeasure the medical station's advanced systems could deploy. They began spreading beyond the original patients. By hour 8, 3 members of the medical staff had developed infections that no known treatment could touch. By hour 10, the station's own biofiltration systems were reporting contamination alerts. By hour 12, Administrator Thymon was implementing full quarantine protocols while trying to explain to Sector Command why a routine medical treatment had turned into a biological disaster that was apparently spreading through their most advanced medical facility. Perhaps, Dr. Blackwood suggested with the kind of diplomatic understatement that was probably taught in human diplomatic schools, it's time to consider alternative treatments. Dr. Voss stared at the holographic displays showing the progression of what could only be described as weaponized bacteria with cybernetic enhancements. Her forearms hung at her sides in defeat. Around her, the most advanced medical facility in the sector was being systematically overwhelmed by bacteria that had apparently graduated from basic biology to advanced mechanical engineering in less than 12 hours. Yo, fermented vegetables, she said quietly. Among other things, yes. You believe your homemade antibiotics will prove effective against bacteria that have learned to eat our nanobots. The treatment targets bacterial cellular processes that remain consistent regardless of technological adaptation, Dr. Blackwood explained, opening her container of what still looked like something that belonged in a questionable restaurant rather than a medical facility. The compounds work through mechanisms that bacteria can't easily adapt to because they are based on fundamental biological processes rather than technological intervention. Dr. Voss performed a complex gesture with her forearms that roughly translated to "The universe is laughing at me and I can hear it." Very well, Dr. Blackwood. Please, save my patients with your folk medicine. What followed was perhaps the most educational experience of Dr. Voss's very long medical career. Dr. Blackwood administered her homemade antibiotics with the calm competence of someone who had never doubted they would work. The fermented garlic extract disrupted bacterial cellular walls through mechanisms so simple they couldn't be adapted to. The willow bark derivative provided anti-inflammatory support that didn't require nanobotic intervention. The honey created an environment that bacteria simply couldn't survive in, regardless of how many cybernetic enhancements they'd acquired. Within 6 hours, bacterial counts were dropping across all patients. Within 12 hours, the station's biofiltration systems were reporting normal conditions. Within 24 hours, patients who had been dying from infections that defied the galaxy's most advanced medical technology were sitting up in bed asking when they could return to duty. Remarkable, Dr. Voss admitted as she reviewed the treatment results. Your alternative methods proved effective where our advanced systems failed. Sometimes the old ways work because they are simple, Dr. Blackwood replied. Bacteria can adapt to complex technological solutions, but it's much harder for them to develop resistance to basic biological and chemical processes that have been refined over thousands of years of trial and error. The aftermath was, in many ways, more devastating than the crisis itself. Word spread quickly through the Hegemony Medical Consortium that their most advanced facility had been saved by what amounted to a human mixing bowl full of fermented vegetables and tree bark. Medical schools across the galaxy began quietly adding courses on primitive biological treatments to their curricula. Dr. Voss found herself giving lectures on the importance of understanding simple solutions to complex problems. But the truly ironic twist came 6 weeks later, when the Hegemony Medical Authority issued its official report on the incident. After extensive analysis of Dr. Blackwood's treatments, they concluded that humans possessed medical knowledge that was simultaneously primitive and dangerously advanced. The report noted that human folk medicine could potentially destabilize established medical protocols across the galaxy if widely adopted. The official recommendation was that human medical practitioners should be classified as a Class 7 biological hazard. Not because their treatments were dangerous to patients, but because they were dangerous to the galaxy's medical establishment. The report specifically cited the risk that simple, effective treatments might undermine confidence in expensive, technologically advanced medical systems. Dr. Blackwood received the news of her classification as a biological hazard with the same calm acceptance she had shown throughout the crisis. Well, she told Captain Kowalski as they prepared to leave Mercer's Edge, I suppose being considered too dangerous because our medicine works too well is better than being ignored because it looks too simple. As the Wanderer's Hope undocked from the medical station, Dr. Voss watched from her office viewport. In her 4 hands, she held copies of Dr. Blackwood's treatment formulations, officially classified documents that the Hegemony Medical Authority had declared too dangerous for general distribution. She was already planning to add them to her private medical reference library, right next to her collection of technologies that were too effective for public use. The universe, it seemed, had played its ultimate joke on the galaxy's medical establishment. The most advanced civilization in known space had just been saved by fermented vegetables and declared war on effective healthcare because it threatened their professional pride. And somewhere in the cosmic background radiation, the universe was probably still laughing. After all, nothing was more dangerous to established expertise than a simple solution that actually worked.